Okay, guys. So today I'm going to explain to you, right, on how to answer the final exam questions. Tips of how to answer the final exam questions. So as you, I think you are familiar. You are not familiar yet, right? Because you are still in the first semester, right? So basically, in the final exam, there are two types of questions. In every subject, I think almost same lah. One is direct questions, another one is a case study or problematic questions. So I think for a direct question, there will be no problem. Since it's direct, it's a clear cut. So there's no problem for the student to understand the questions, right? But for indirect questions like scenario or problematic questions, these are very, uh, much critical for students because not many students can grasp the understanding of the questions, right? So I'm gonna give you a tips. All right. Can you see the words?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay. Okay. So before that, I will explain to you what is the problematic question is. So problematic question is a type of question that hampers many students, of course, during the examinations. So it is purported to gauge the students' comprehensions and knowledge on a certain subject. Okay. To be specific, it measures student insights and capability implying the theories into practice. Okay, and blah blah blah. All right. So as far as our course is concerned, right? When you can you see the questions, Anis and Hanan here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is example of problematic question which is very short lah. Which is very short. In the final exam might be longer. Longer than this. Okay. So usually, how to know that is a direct or indirect questions or problematic question? Usually, a problematic question would have a scenario, right? Would have a scenario, and the words sentences is much longer as compared to direct questions. And normally also they have, when talking about scenario, they have certain actors or actresses. Like in this case, the actresses are Anis and Hanan. So this indicate most probably that this is a problematic questions. Okay. So what when come across this type of question, what we have to do is you have to have some steps to answer the problematic question. You cannot just direct answer the questions. So the problem is that some students they lost their mark because of they fail to obey or to adhere the steps, right? Okay, so what are those steps? First, by hook by crook, you have to have some introduction on or a summary of the case. You make a summary, just one sentence or two sentences. The longest will be two sentences. But I think it's enough for you just to write one sentence only. So the summary is not you repeat the questions. It's rather you summarize the scenario. Okay. So when I see that you have summarized the scenario, I just give straight you the mark. So I have no actually doubt on whether is it right or wrong, something like that. So it's a summary. It's very in this kind of things. I just give a mark to the students. Okay. The second one is this one is very critical, whereby one is why is critical because uh, it's very hard sometimes to identify the issue, or the problem, right? Uh, if you ask me why it's very hard, it's very subjective. Sometimes students they fail to they understand. They fail to understand the subject matter on what topic actually, for example, on what topic that these questions covers. What is the question is all about, something like that. So many actually things lah. But the issue actually the right issue will determine your correctness of the answer. So that's why it's very important actually that you understand the scenario and also extract the issue. Right? So if I may can give example of that. And another one, the issue must be specific and not so general. The issue must be specific and not so general. For instance, when a student answers whether Achong is entitled to damages, this kind of uh, this kind of sentence is very general, right? You have to be specific, like whether Achong is entitled to damages as a result of fraudulent contract done by Achai. So that is specific. So if you answer your answer is whether Achong is entitled to damages, you might get lesser mark rather than the bottom one. Okay. So that is for the issue. Okay. Next is the law. All right. Okay. When you have identified the issue, you have to put the law which is related to that issue. Right. That's why identifying the issue is very important because it would determine the correct law. So so the law can be maybe may comprise of provisions under the act. For example, the Contract Act. Okay, for example, like Section 17, Section 18 of Contract Act, something like that. Depending on the issue.
Doktor,
Yes, John.
bukan jawab. Ada orang nak masuk, tak dapat nak masuk kelas.
Apa? Tak boleh masuk? Okay. Dah masuk dah? Okay? Alright. Okay, so the issue might comprise of one is provisions of law under section what, and second one is decided cases. Okay, decided case or decided cases. So sometimes it's only comprised of the law, provision of the law alone, and sometimes is only related to case, and sometimes both, the provision under the law or the cases. So how to know that your answer is true or not? Normally, whatever notes that are given to you, the handouts, right? If the handouts explain you to write the law and the cases, so you have to write both, the provision under the law and also the case, right? Okay, so under the topic of the law, you have to state only the law. You don't have to comment the law. Okay, you just state section 3, something like that, section 2 of the Majority Act, which says that the age of majority, for example, the age of majority is 18 years old and above. Okay, so that's all. Right? So for example, in the case of married and married, this case, the fact of the case and decision of the case. That's all. All right. So next, number 4 is you to apply the law to the existing case. So this is you give your I would say your inference, your understanding, your understanding on the how the law is related to the existing scenario, right? So I will give you an example like in the
Doktor, ada orang nak masuk.
okay, so like for example, you can use the word like by applying the law to the existing case. I'm of the opinion that there is no evidence that the consent was not fully given freely by Anis, for example. So thus it is submitted that by virtue of explanation 2 to section 26 of the Contract Act, the contract of sale between Anis and Hanan is thereby valid and enforceable. Okay, so this is an example of how to apply the law and also the you relate to the existing case. So you give the you explain the law, which in relation to the existing case, and also you can also a little bit make a preliminary conclusion, but not to conclude yet. All right. And then lastly, number 5 is the conclusions. So the conclusion, I expect that you can just as introduction, you don't have to write long, just one sentence or 2 sentences only. You sum up, for example, the contract to be valid, the law is concerned with the adequacy of the constitution itself, but rather is a sufficiency. For example, so this is which is related to the existing example. So I will give you these tips in the outer. I think I have uploaded already. In the outer, you can check in the outer. So what I just want you to do is to follow all these steps. One is because it's make your life easier, and the second one is because normally the schemes of mark, the schemes of marks would depends on the entirely on these 5 steps. If it happens for what you call that, problematic questions. So in other words, we cannot run away from these 5 steps in order to answer the problematic questions. So meaning to say, if you fail to follow one step, you might lose several marks, because you don't follow the answer schemes. Any questions? So,
no, Doctor.
Tak ada. So I give example of previous. This is previous questions. I give example like students who answer these kind of problematic questions. Okay, this is your senior lah, second year students. Okay, so the question is problematic questions, right? So she actually look at this, she begin with introductions, so I give this mark, and she extract the issue, another marks, and the law, right? Applications and conclusions, right? So these are a kind of steps of how to answer the problematic questions. Uh, so even I, explain this to the students. Yet in the final exam, there are some students also fail to follow these steps. That's a I don't know how to explain more because I have explained already, right? I have to remind already, but yet there are some students who fail to follow the steps. So I cannot help much. If you fail to follow the step, then you will lose your mark. Because problematic questions, as I just mentioned just now, the answer scheme would depends on this. So if you fail to follow the steps, so meaning to say you will lose your one of the marks. Some students, just at the beginning of the answer, he or she has already made a conclusion ready. So that is problem. So I don't want this type of answer. What I want you to do is to go step by step, right? From the introductions, extracting the issue, and then put the law. You apply what the law is, and then you make your conclusions, right? Okay, just like this. Another one is in the final exam, you have to write the answer by in writing. You cannot actually type in the author. You have to write in the piece of paper, and then at the end of the final exam, normally we will give you 30 minutes, something like that, to snap the picture, and then you upload and submit to the author. Okay. So if direct questions, so I will not be so strict on that. Okay, you just answer directly, right? So let's say if the direct question asks you explain three elements of, for example, valid contract. So you just write there are three elements of valid contract. One is, for example, proposal. Okay, blah blah blah. What is proposal? Number two is acceptance. So that. So you just straightforward directly answer the question. But for problematic, you have to go for that steps that I have explained just now. Okay, we look at the previous questions. Can you see the questions?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Boleh.
So this was the previous questions of the real estate law 1, right? So the format is the same, right? Duration of 3 hours, and the instruction answer all questions. You don't have any options of that. So the question will be 3 questions, right? As I explained to you, I inform you that there will be only 3 topics. So one topic cover 1 questions. From law of contract, law of agency, and the what you call it, law of tort. Right? So one question will be on contract, one question will be on the law agency, and also law of tort. Right? Okay. So this example, like the questions, right? So question 1A, is it direct or indirect? Guys, question 1A. What do you think? Is it direct or indirect? Or problematic question?
I think direct.
Yes, it's a direct questions. So it's a direct questions. How to know whether it's a direct or indirect? Normally, so there is no sub scenario, right? It just gives you a captions, right? And then the question asks you to discuss. One more thing, if the question asks you to discuss, meaning to say it is you have to discuss, not to just state. So it's a difference between state three of this one. Discuss. Discuss is actually much longer than as a state. So you have to discuss a little bit. Question 1B. Is direct or problematic?
No.
No what?
Problematic.
No direct.
Indirect, problematic. Okay, good lah. You actually have identified already. Okay. So it goes lah. So I think you understood lah. To differentiate between the direct or indirect lah.